So whenever you're doing content marketing, we're talking it's a 6 to 18 month journey. You have to understand that it takes time. Anything good takes time, and most people throw in the towel too early. They just give up. They can't go through the pain. All right, so since it's the afternoon, I'm trying to get you guys to wake up a little bit. So why don't you go to your partners and give each other a high five really quick, left and right. Just do it really quick. Just do it really quick. There you go. There you go. All right, great. So I'm going to be talking about the 7 tips to succeed with podcasting while also winning at SEO. Plus, I'm going to give a little bonus and talk about Facebook Messenger bots and the recent success that we've been seeing with it. So there's a little bit of a title change here, but I wanted to focus more on 2 things that you can do. Just a quick show of hands really quick. Who here actually listens to podcasts? Okay. Thanks, man. Cool. So my name's Eric Su, like Clayton said, and I run a marketing agency called Single Grain. And I also have a podcast with Neil Patel where we nerd out on marketing every single day. And it's called Marketing School. And so, we put a lot of time into it. If you feel like nerding out on marketing, just listen to it. And also there's one more. It's called Growth Everywhere. And that's where I interview a lot of different entrepreneurs, and we talk about how they grew their business. We talk about their struggles, and we talk about how they grow personally as well, which is really important to me. So, when you talk about growth, when you talk about growth marketing or growth hacking, I think at the end of the day, you also need to think about yourself too. How do you yourself grow, right? Growth hacking yourself, personal growth, whatever you want to call it. So that's my little way of getting into other people's heads. So that's enough about me. I want to talk about what you're going to get out of this talk. So really quick over here, this graph shows that podcasting, at least in the United States, is continuing to get bigger and bigger. And it makes sense, right? Because in the United States, at least, Apple podcasts are going into cars, and connections speeds are getting a lot faster as well. Phones are getting better too. So it just makes sense that podcasting is growing because you get this information for free, and you get to learn from people, right? So it's a good deal. So 21%, that's 21% versus 17% in the last year. And you can see that 1/3 of Americans have now said they listen to a podcast. And Libsyn, which is the hosting tool that I use for podcasting, and I think for those of you trying to get into podcasting, Libsyn is a really great option to check out. But 3.3 billion downloads in 2015. So again, getting bigger and bigger. Libsyn provides a lot of options. I'll talk about it in a second. So what does podcasting actually give you? Like, what's the ROI of podcasting, right? If we're going to spend money on it, if we're going to spend time in it, what's it actually going to yield? And at the end of the day, it gives you, first of all, you get customers from it, right? And here's the great thing about the customers that we get from podcasting. As a services-based business, people will call in, they'll say, hey, Eric, really appreciate the podcast. By the way, we want to work with you. And the great thing about it is that the sales cycle is much shorter and the LTV is a lot higher because they get to know who you are. It's the same thing as when you watch a webinar, you're more likely to purchase from people because, well, you've listened to them for an hour, you trust them, and you're more likely to take out your credit card and buy whatever software or course that they have available. So it's great for recruiting too. Some of the best people that I found for Single Grain are people that have reached out to me on Twitter and said, hey, I listened to your podcast, I really want to work for you. And for these people coming out of college, it takes a certain kind of person to listen to an entrepreneurial podcast or a marketing podcast in the first place, right? So these are the kinds of people that you want to hire, right? Growth Tribe here is all about learning, right? I'm looking at this poster right here, always be learning, right? So those are the people that you want to hire, the people that are constantly growing, not people that are trying to come into your company and just being another cog in the system. And I highly recommend getting all your new hires to read a book from Seth Godin called Linchpin. It's really good. It tells people not to be cogs in the system. Speaking opportunities, the fact that I'm here, the fact that I've been in Brazil, the fact that I've been in other countries is because of the podcast. So, you might not get immediate ROI from it. It takes a long time to build up, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. But, when people get to know you and you have a platform like this, it's the same thing with having a YouTube channel. And it's actually easier to manage than a YouTube channel because you can do this in your boxers or your underwear. And you get free mentorship from people too. I can talk to people. I'm talking to David over here in a couple of weeks. You ran a great company called Max CDN. Free mentorship from people. I want to learn what makes them tick, right? I want to learn what hacks they're using, what marketing stuff that they're doing to make their companies grow. I want to learn how they struggled. I want to learn what the last book they read was, right? I want to learn all this stuff. And then they'll give me more tips for other people to interview, because great people like to hang out with great people. Partnerships too. I'll talk about a little thing that Neil and I are doing with marketing school right now in terms of partnerships. So just so many great things that you can do in introductions to great people. So this is the overall worldwide interest in podcasting over the last 5 years. And you can see that it's starting to spike up, right? Again, the technology is getting there, right? You have your internet speeds that are getting there as well. And it makes sense for podcasting to start growing. Now, you're probably wondering, like, I've been giving you these stats around the United States, like, who cares about the US, right? Well, let's look at the Netherlands really quick. You can see it's starting to spike up as well. You can look at the last year or so, it's starting to slowly inch up, and that means now is the time to get in on it, right? When you see something start to make its way up, you talk about Facebook Messenger ads, for example. You want to talk about podcasting. You want to get in when it's early so you have the first mover advantage over your competitors, right? So these are the stats around growth everywhere. This is my podcast where I interview entrepreneurs. This is about 800,000 over 3.5 years. So it's not great versus other, some of you are probably getting millions of visits a month, but you can see it's slow growth. You can see at least for the first about 2 years or so, God, it was a tough slog, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But now, we're getting up to 100,000, 130,000 downloads a month, and some days we'll get about 10 or 15,000. So it's decent, right? And that led up to this, where I started the podcast with Neil, and in 8 months, we're already at 3.3 million downloads, and it's getting bigger and bigger. But again, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have growth everywhere to lock down the process to get to this phase. But I'll tell you how to get there. So here's what actually happened. It's not all sunshine and flowers at the end of the day, because you can see the first year, I was spending about 6 hours a week interviewing people. I was doing the editing. I was writing the show notes. Plus, I was trying to run Single Grain at the same time, and it was really difficult. And at the end of 1 year, my fruits of labor, I was getting 9 downloads a day. Okay, that's after 1 year. 6 hours a week, 9 downloads a day. So the question I get from people is like, why don't you just throw in the towel? Like, how did you know to keep on going? And the reality is that, well, even though the odds weren't in my favor, it's because of the unsolicited responses. So whenever you're doing content marketing, we're talking it's a 6 to 18 month journey, you have to understand that it takes time. Anything good takes time, and most people throw in the towel too early. They just give up. They can't go through the pain, right? So as long as you're getting unsolicited responses from people tweeting at you. I got emails from people saying, I don't know why this isn't more popular, this is good. For marketing school, and Neil and I get people telling us, hey, I had no college degree and, I just found my first job, thank you. Or we had 0 in revenue and we just closed a $200,000 deal. It's like, you're doing the right thing. So you just keep on going. So, 9 downloads a day, and it was only 3 years into it where it really started to take off. And yeah, we were trying different things. But I think if I were to give you any tip at all, if there's only one from this talk, it's just consistency, right? It's not even just podcasting. It's not just content marketing. It's your business. It's your life, right? Even in a relationship, just consistency, right? You just keep on going. So consistency is the first thing. And it doesn't mean you can suck, though. So tip number 2 is quality, right? What does that even mean? So for those of you that listen to podcasts, you probably listen to, you might have a top 2 or 3. But what's the reason that you actually listen to them, right? Think about that for a second. For me, it's because I'm looking for the same consistent quality. So for me, I listen to the Tim Ferriss show. Why? Because he keeps interviewing people that are really hard to reach, right? You get Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example. It's really hard to access, right? Or for me, there's also another one called We Study Billionaires, which is a investing podcast where I just learn. I really don't know much about value investing, or you talk about expense ratios, things like that, all this kind of stuff. Well, We Study Billionaires. They review books. They're really consistent. They bring on guests that I probably never hear from. And then the Smart Passive Income show from Pat Flynn. And then don't forget about ours. But I listen to these consistently because they deliver consistent quality, right? It's like watching the same TV show over and over. As a matter of fact, when I go to the gym now, I just listen to podcasts because I feel like I feel guilty if I'm not learning when I'm going to the gym. So we talked about why they're so good, but the third thing is learning from the best. So if you guys are looking to start out with podcasting, all you need to do is just go to these 2 tutorials. You can Google these. Pat Flynn podcast tutorial. He's got a bunch of videos about the equipment that you should be using. He talks about what hosting you should be using as well, how much you're looking to spend. And then also John Lee Dumas, he talks about the same things. He talks about how to get your first guests. And John Lee Dumas even has a course that you can pay for if you're looking to get into a community where people are trying to start their podcast. And the great thing about that community is every Friday they do something called Pay It Forward Fridays, and this is where you talk to people. People are sharing their podcast, and everyone's rating and reviewing each other because rate, reviews, and subscribes actually matter, at least through iTunes. So you want to have a community where you guys can push each other up. So in Instagram right now, these are called pods. And, it's a method of people trying to game Instagram right now, and it is working right now. This is a similar thing. It's kind of the wild, wild west right now when it comes to reviews, ratings, and subscribes. But you need these to move up, right? And here's another stat for you. 90% of podcasts, of the downloads, actually only go to the top 50 for each category. So you have to figure out how you can push into there, right? And I'll tell you a couple ways to promote in a second. So tip number 4 is to put your own unique spin on it. So what does that mean, right? So if you look at marketing school, it's really hard to get a daily marketing podcast. It's really hard to have a topic for every single day. But also at the same time, to be able to get 2 marketers that have differing opinions. So Neil and I, we disagree on things, and sometimes we agree on things. But he's traveling, I'm traveling. He's busy, I get busy. So it's like, how do you make that happen? That's our unique spin on it, right? So think about it. How can you make a unique spin on what you're doing? I will say that if you're doing daily and you're looking to run advertising on podcasts, you're going to do better because obviously you're selling on a CPM basis, which is anywhere from $20 to $100. So just keep that in mind. Tip number 5 is to promote. So this goes without saying. I think a lot of people know that they need to be promoting, but not a lot of people actually follow through on it. So ways to promote. The easiest way is to interview guests that have a certain social following. So when I first started Growth Everywhere, I was like, I need to reach out to people that have 5,000 Twitter followers. They need to be doing over $2 million a year in revenue or raise $2 million. But you need to set criteria first and then interview these people, and then you can have people share on social media. And that's the second thing, sharing on social media. The great thing is, if you're interviewing people, at the end of the day, their stories are evergreen. They're not going to change, right? So you can easily just go to a tool called Meet Edgar. So that's meetedgar.com, and it's a little octopus. But it allows you to share things on social media in perpetuity. So you can set up a schedule and it'll just keep sharing things over and over and over. You pay $50 a month and you don't have to worry about it. You just schedule it in there. If you've got evergreen content like an interview podcast, you should be doing that, right? Facebook, Twitter, it'll do LinkedIn as well. Not sure what else it does, but that should be enough. And don't be afraid to hit your email list too. Especially if you're starting out, you have 10, 20, 30, 40, even like 1,000 followers or so on your email list. You should be hitting them up because these are your fans, right? You can set up a simple, blog to RSS feed for inside your email provider, and you'll be hitting people up, every single week, or it could be every single day. Probably not every single day because you don't want to annoy them. Use paid advertising too, and I'll share what Russell Brunson does, who's a really good marketer. I'll share what he does around his tool, ClickFunnels. And then also, for hosting, I talked about using Libsyn. Use Libsyn because it's going to allow you to cross-post to YouTube, to SoundCloud at the same time, to LinkedIn, to Facebook. All these things, you can hit them all at once, right? So use Libsyn. And I haven't really done anything with our YouTube channel, but we've gotten to 3,000 subscribers just because it keeps auto-posting, right? And I know that once we hit 10,000 subscribers or so, it's going to blow up, right? Like once you start to hit a certain number, I have a friend that got to 10,000. And she got to 100,000 really quickly after that. So just keep in mind, like if you just keep going, you're gonna hit a certain point where everything just explodes, and that's where they call, people are like, oh, it's hockey stick growth. But hockey stick growth takes time. Almost died there. So yeah, the other thing is SoundCloud too. It's slowly growing, but just make sure you're hitting all these other channels because it makes sense. People are listening to stuff on SoundCloud. Tip number 6 is always try to get more ratings, reviews, and subscribes. So that's easy to say, but harder to do. I recommend that if you have an intro and an outro, especially in the outro, you should be asking for ratings, reviews, and subscribes. You need to have at least one kind of call to action for the time that you're putting in. The least you can do is get a review, rating, and subscribe. And then tip number 7 is to put your own unique spin on it. So we talked about earlier, like, what separates, people, right? So you have to put your unique spin on it, but this is what Russell Brunson did right here from ClickFunnels. This right here is an MP3 player. He has, over 300 episodes. He's probably over 400 now of just marketing in your car, where he just talks in his car, nerds out on marketing for 5 to 10 minutes a day. He's got over, 300 to 400 episodes, and he just puts it all in this MP3 player. So what he does here is that he drives paid traffic to it. So from Facebook, he'll drive traffic here, and, he's just giving away these MP3 players. All you need to do is pay for shipping. So if you guys want more marketing stuff to nerd out on, you can easily find this on Facebook somewhere, or just Google, marketing in your car MP3 player. You pay $9 for shipping, and then he has a bunch of upsells afterwards. So what he's doing right now, he's trying to drive more downloads, okay? So, or more subscribes, I should say. So what he's doing is that he is basically, he'll run ads, and then for each person that buys, 4 or 5 people will end up subscribing to his podcast. But the beautiful thing is, he's actually profitable with this funnel. With advertising, you're mainly just looking to drive people to a break-even funnel. But he'll spend $15 for an acquisition on an MP3 player, and at the end of the day, he'll make $32 on that. And that's just on the front end. So he sells stuff, for $25,000 mastermind, $5,000 this, $2,000 that. So if he's profitable on the front end, my God, it's all gravy at the end. Plus he gets 4 or 5 subscribers. This is something everyone should be doing, and this is something Neil and I are working on right now, because we know we have an advantage. I can actually do this twice, right? So if you have a podcast, you're able to do things like this, and you have a moat that's pretty hard for people to cross, because it takes time to do a podcast, it takes time to build an audience, and it takes time to actually have some authority in this space. So for those of you that are looking to get into podcasting, you should get in now, because you can actually drive ads and actually grow your business exponentially doing something like this. And I remember Russell saying on one of his podcasts that podcasting is one of the most important things that he's done in the last couple of years. So that's something to take a look at. For us, for Marketing School, what we're doing is we're reaching out to a lot of marketing software companies, and we're mentioning their tool, and we're giving away like 1 annual subscription. And in exchange, they're going to promote to their list. Maybe they have 100,000 people or 200,000 people on it, and it's a win-win-win for both sides. Our audience gets something. They get almost died again, and they get promotion to 580,000 people a month. And at the same time, it's just a win across the board. So that's what we're trying to do, and it's actually been working out really well. So if you have a marketing tool that you'd like us to maybe mention on Marketing School, just reach out to me afterwards. So here's how you actually win at SEO with podcasting. So at the same time, we created a domain called marketingschool.io, and we just started cross-posting auto-posting our show notes to a WordPress blog. We didn't do any link building, we didn't do anything, it's just auto-posting, right? Looks like a piece of crap. But it's okay, because it works. So this thing right here, you can see there's a play button, and then you can also play it on SoundCloud, you can play it on iTunes, Stitcher, and each and every episode we just keep posting it. And we're gonna repurpose this later, but it's just good that this is constantly going. So here, you can see, we're just going up and to the right. We're not building any links, it's just pure content, right? We might eventually start to expand stuff, we might actually start to put more time into it, but this is a good placeholder. If you're doing a daily marketing podcast, do something like this, right? Don't forget about SEO, it's important, right? Clayton just emphasized how important SEO is. The last thing right here, you probably can't see this, but I recommend Googling it. This is the content reusage workflow. The creator of this, her name is Aleda, and she's a great international SEO. And the thesis behind this is basically, if you're going to spend money on buying a car, for example, you're not going to drive it for just 30 days and leave it, right? You want to maximize the mileage on it. You want to maximize the use of it. So when you're producing a piece of content, you spend a couple $100 in my instance. You want to figure out, okay, if I create a webinar, can I make it into blog posts? Can I make it into a speaking engagement, right? Can I make more social images from it? How do I maximize the value of my content? How do we maximize the mileage of this piece of content? Right? I think we all need to be thinking about it, because I think a lot of us in here, I'm guilty of this too, is just you spend this money on content and it just goes out there to die. And it's pretty sad that we spend all that effort and then we move on to the next thing. So we got to figure out how to maximize it. And I think this might be a full-time role in the future, because we're putting a lot of effort into repurposing right now, and our traffic is just starting to skyrocket. So the other one is making sure that you have someone write your show notes. This is around marketingschool.io. There is a company called the Show Notes Guy. So I recommend checking them out. They do a lot of podcasting show notes, and they're pretty knowledgeable in the space. And you can also transcribe your stuff too. Just go to rev, that's rev.com, or you can go to scaleapi.com too. You pay 50 cents on every single minute. I can't see how much time I have.
5 minutes.
Great. All right. So I'm going to roll through this really quick. So next up, this is the bonus right here. This is Facebook Messenger ads. So how many of you have seen a Facebook Messenger bot live? Okay, so about 20% of you. Okay, so this is interesting. I think this is another thing to jump on right now, because a lot of people are going to start to abuse this soon, because us marketers like to abuse things and pollute things. This is definitely going to happen. So all of you should create a Facebook Messenger bot. But the question is, why? Because you can get, first of all, you can get 70% open rates, and then you can get 50% click-through rates. So these are engagement rate numbers that you have not seen probably since the beginning of email, probably since we're, 20 years ago, right? So if you want something like this, you gotta be creating a messenger bot right now, and I'll show you what our workflow looks like. I don't have enough time to show you like how to set it up. But basically, people are seeing this ad right now. It's, hey, we studied over 1 million backlinks on Airbnb, Udemy, Lyft, Workday. Just leave a comment below if you want to get access to this, right? And you want to see how these great companies do SEO. And you can see here, 71 comments, about 140 people that have engaged with it in terms of liking it. You should be checking this out. You know, this is the very top of the funnel, right? How do you get people to engage? I'm running this towards retargeting traffic and cold traffic too. And what happens afterwards is that once you leave a comment, you get a message immediately, and it qualifies you, right? So it says, hey, thanks for opting into our list. By the way, type 1, 2, or 3 for the thing that applies most to you. So it can be number 1, I don't have a business. Number 2, my business has less than 5 million in revenues. Number 3, my business has more than 5 million in revenues. And you can see I've entered 3 over here. And when I enter 3, this is what happens. There's a little GIF right there, and it says, you're awesome. Here's how you can get access to the 1 billion backlinks case study. And just a link, they can go to the site. I've added a UTM tracking parameter to it. And so I know where people are coming from, right? And then afterwards, they're actually opted into my nurture sequence. So think of this as your email list. And again, I can add GIFs. I can add videos as well. I have a little fox that pops up saying, hi, thanks again for being part of our community. And here's other stuff. If you want more marketing stuff, by the way, right, here's more value. Marketing School, Growth Podcast, YouTube channel. Right, so I'm just trying to overwhelm them with value in the beginning. And I'm not trying to ask you to, hey, like, come buy our stuff, right? It's, hey, how much more value can I give you? How much more can I serve you, right? And by the way, you can also unsubscribe anytime you want, and then they're off your list forever. So there's many other possibilities as well, but I just want you to pay attention to where this is going. So this, broadcasting to people, you can. Right now, I can send a broadcast, like an email broadcast to people, and the open rates are really high, which is the numbers that I gave you earlier. Video tutorial sequence, too. You want to get even more personal, you can do that. Blog to RSS broadcast. There's just so many different possibilities. Just think of email with higher engagement. That's how you should think about messenger ads. Tools to use, I'll just give you one. I'll make it easy. ManyChat is a tool that I've been using. You don't need to know how to code. You pay $10 a month to set it up. Get to 500 subscribers, you're going to start paying more. But you're going to save your developers, your engineers time, check out ManyChat. And if you actually want access to the 1 million backlinks case study, it's right here. All you need to do is just go to bit.ly and then go to the backlinks-study, and you can get access to the 1 million backlinks case study. And there's about 5 right now, but we're doing 10 total. So that's it. I think I have a minute.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.